Welcome, ladies and gent.
He's used to that.
All right, it's time to start pretty much, so let's start with the gong, eh? It's cute if nothing else, huh? I'd like to welcome everyone here tonight, our live audience as well as our broadcast audience. We're broadcasting this program to a number of people in the world, and we have a number of them watching. So it's nice to have everybody join us for this, in my opinion, historic event. And you'll find out why as I discuss things here. I am excited to be here tonight because even though we're humble here a little bit, it's been a long time coming. It's a lot of work has gone not only into this Northport Center here, but also into what started it, and that's the International Church of Metaphysical Humanism. And so tonight on the program, I'm going to discuss what metaphysical humanism is, and what it's not, and that kind of a thing. Give you some more information on that. Give you a little bit of background on it too. And I'm going to also we're going to have Dr. Vicky Hunter, who is the Vice President of Operations and a board member of the International Church of Metaphysical Humanism. She's going to be giving a presentation via Skype from Canada on psychic phenomena and metaphysical humanism. And then following her, Rubin, ufologist and all-around nice guy, will be giving the presentation UFOs Past, Present, and Future with a PowerPoint presentation. So, and then once we do that, we'll wrap it up and we'll have our social hour, affectionately known as the Coffee Clatch. You ever heard that before? Yeah. Well, that's what we're going to do. Whatever that is, that's what we're going to do. So we're glad that you're here to have us. Of course, the folks online can't do it, but we wish you were here too. All right. So as we get started, metaphysical humanism, what is it? It's a term that I coined because it is broader. Maybe you're familiar with secular humanism. Secular humanism obviously is not a religiously based thing. It is a spiritual philosophy per se, but it's not religiously based. And secular humanists are largely materialists. And if you don't know what that term means, it just means that what you see is what you get and there's nothing else. There's no life after death. There's no psychic phenomena. There's no paranormal phenomena. There's nothing. It's just this. And when you're dead and you're gone, and that's it. So that's secular humanism. Humanism basically is, secular humanists are made up of atheists, agnostics, obviously not religious people because they don't necessarily believe in God, the God concept as promoted in the Bible and other mainstream religions. So humanism is atheist with regard to the biblical God concept. It's agnostic, which means we don't know, with regard to whether there's actually a creator or not. Some people feel there is, some people feel there's not. One thing that metaphysical humanism is not is extreme. It is not fanatical. Because you can find folks on both sides of the coin, can't you, who are fanatics on the religious side or fanatics on the atheist side. We're not. We don't know. We're here to learn. We're here to explore. And metaphysical humanism is about empowering the individual, building up the individual. And I'll get into that a little bit more as we go through this. What I'd like to do right now is essentially summarize it with our 9 principles of belief. They're presented here, and I realize there's some glare on the glass there, which we'll remove. But I'll read them to you, and then we've got a short video that kind of highlights them that's kind of nice. I'm proud of it. I didn't do it, but I'm proud of it. All right. So principles of belief. This is our foundation here. Number 1, as sentient and evolving human beings, we not only believe in practicing and living by the principles do no harm, but also the principle of do right, thus enhancing the vibrational level of humanity. Number 2, we believe in the indomitable power of the human spirit to ultimately triumph in the face of any dilemma. The answers we seek already exist within us. We invoke and exert the counselor and guru within. Number 3, we believe that we alone are responsible for and capable of solving human social problems, and believe the roots of those solutions lie in exploring, understanding, and empowering the human condition. Number 4, We embrace the differences that make all human beings unique, recognizing that we come from star material and are therefore equal, irrespective of heritage, beliefs, gender, or gender preference. One planet, one race, one ancestry, one destiny. Number 5, rather than a supreme being, we recognize and honor the divine energy that exists in all living things. It's pantheistic in nature. Number 6, we believe the nature of a human being encompasses both the physical and spiritual aspect, and that human consciousness survives the death of the physical body in a coherent fashion. Thus, death opens a new chapter of life and conducts the individual into a higher state of existence. Number 7, we believe in self-acceptance, self-responsibility, and respect for free will, and that these three synergistically create the goal of self-completeness, which is another term for self-actualization. Number 8, we believe in the value of practical education in metaphysics, metapsychology, and life skills as a means of empowering the human spirit and enhancing the human condition. We maintain an open but grounded mind to potential realities as yet undescribed by science. And number 9, we believe that discovering the true nature of consciousness and human existentialism will ultimately have a positive impact on human evolution and peaceful coexistence. So kind of in a nutshell of sorts, that's the foundation beliefs of metaphysical humanism. We're going to play a short video that kind of summarizes this, and it's a nice video, and then I'll come back and I'll kind of highlight a couple of different things in here, explain them a little bit more. And if you happen to have questions, feel free to raise your hand and I'll get your question, but we'll pass a mic to you for the benefit of our video audience. So we'll go ahead and we'll cue up the video. Bear with us a little bit. This is our first shot at broadcasting, sort of. Good, thanks. No. So, nice video? It is. I love it. One of my students did that, and he did a great job. Am I good? Mike, good? Okay. So let me kind of go through a couple of these things. As you probably have gathered by now, that do no harm and do right are two of our fundamental foundational principles for everything else. In fact, think about that for a minute. If the whole world just practiced those two things, what kind of world would we be living in? It would be an awesome, amazing world if people would just do those two things, do no harm. But that's not enough. It has to be followed up with do right, because there are times when we can do no harm. We can be walking down the street and somebody's getting mugged over here and we don't interfere. Well, we're not really harming anybody per se, but we're also not probably doing the right thing. Perhaps we could call the police or do something like that. So there are times when we can do right as well. And so those are the two fundamental principles of everything that we do. The other big points here in the 9 principles of belief are that we don't believe in giving our power away to anyone or anything else. We have the answers. We're capable of that. Human beings are powerful, are we not? We are. And we can come up with solutions, as long as, we try to stop killing each other and all this tribal warfare and stuff. But that's the point. And we're not going to tell you that you're a sinner, because you're not. That denigrates people. We're not going to tell you that you're not perfect. Why not? Because that denigrates people. It puts people down. You're perfect just the way you are. As long as you're striving to be better tomorrow than you were yesterday, you're perfect. I mean, think about it. Every one of us is where we are right now because of the choices we've made in our life, right? They have brought us perfectly to this point. And that's why everything's perfect. You don't like where you're at right now? No problem. Change it. We can all do that, can't we? Yes, we can. Another thing that I wanted to point out is our sacred obligations, which are listed here. Again, the first one is do no harm, do right. Reclaim your power. We call it reclamation. And I'm going to drop nuggets through this program. I don't have forever to talk, but I'm going to drop some nuggets. The one thing that will almost cure everything that ails you, whether it's a bad relationship, toxic relationship, whether it's paranormal, adverse paranormal or perceived paranormal activity, even whether it's perceived alien abductions, there's one thing that will cure it all: taking your power back. And that may seem like a simplistic thing, but think about those times in your life when you have taken your power back, when you've gotten that aha moment, that epiphany, and you change. And that's taking your power back. When we take our power back, we protect our boundaries, do we not? We no longer allow people who perhaps have been taking advantage of us to do that anymore. We take our power back, and that's what that sacred obligation is. We have an obligation to do that for our own welfare, for those perhaps of our children or loved ones. The third one there is attune your life leadership paragon. Everything we teach is based also on what I call the life leadership paragon. It's on that center poster there. It's made up of self-acceptance, self-responsibility, respect for free will, and these three create self-completeness. And I'll be talking more on those in upcoming weeks, starting next week. The fourth one is pay it forward. We've all heard that before, right? But isn't that another nice thing to do? Pay it forward, lighten the load for somebody. And we can pay it forward in such small ways. We can say an encouraging word to somebody. Hi, how you doing today? Rather than, hello. We can be encouraging that way. And the fifth sacred obligation is to deliver your greatness. We all have greatness to deliver. We do. And we all do that. Can we do it on a new level? And that's what this is all about. Delivering greatness every day, smiling at people, saying thank you, saying please. Those are small ways to deliver greatness, but it is greatness because a lot of people just don't do that. So those are some ways that we can do that. I want to go through just a few of the FAQs, or the frequently asked questions that we get, just briefly, and then we're going to be moving along. This stuff is on the website too, on metaphysicalhumanism.org, so you can review that again if you'd like to. One of the big questions is metaphysics a religion? The answer is no, it's not a religion. Metaphysics is the study of consciousness and existence. Who are we? Where we come from? Is there a creator? What happens when we die? Those are all metaphysical type questions. So metaphysics is not a religion in and of itself. Is metaphysical humanism a religion? Yes, it is. From a legal point of view, it is a bona fide religious organization. And it is based on our 9 principles of belief. It has everything it needs. What do you call yourselves? Metaphysical humanists. Pretty straightforward. And we abbreviate the International Church of Metaphysical Humanism, ICMH. So when you hear me say that, that's just an abbreviation. Is it a cult? Good question, huh? No, it's not a cult. Came from a cult, don't want to go back to a cult. So it's not a cult. Why is it not a cult? Yes, I am the founder and the president of the organization. But the interesting thing about what we teach you everything you need so that you don't need me. If I was a cult leader, then I'd say, oh, you need me for this and that and the other thing. But if you look on number 2, principle of belief, the last one, we exert or invoke and exert the counselor and guru within. I've had students saying, wow, you're my guru. No, I'm not. Of course, they probably mean it as mentor, and that's fine, but no, I'm human. Yes, I'm human. You guys awake yet? All right. So no, it's not a cult. Do you believe in God? Not really. I already kind of talked about that. It's more pantheism. Anybody know what pantheism is? It's basically the divine nature of all living things. Loosely, God is in everything, but not in a sentient way or conscious way, but divinity in all living things. And obviously you can follow that, no, we don't do Jesus, and we don't do any gods. Well, who do we worship? The answer is no one. Don't worship anyone. Do you believe in Satan? No. Do you pray? Yes and no. Prayer can be a form of meditation, can it? So when you're in prayerful meditation, sure, that's fine. Do we pray to some being? No. Think about this for a minute. What if somebody came up to you and wanted to worship you? How would you feel about that? Just think about it for a minute. Would it feel a bit awkward, a little uncomfortable? Probably would, wouldn't it? You think, what are you worshiping me for? I'm just like you. Well, if we are sentient, sapient human beings or beings, no enlightened being is going to allow other enlightened beings to worship them. It's not part of the deal. It's not a healthy self-concept to have that. So we don't do that. We don't pray to anyone in particular. Do you believe in sin and imperfection? I already covered that. No, we don't. You're not sinners. What's your position on women? Equal in every respect to men. That's good, isn't it? Seems how we get mostly women in here. Would I say anything different? I'm not stupid. No, but that is true. In fact, if I believed in reincarnation, I'd say I was a woman in a previous life, because I'm more of a feminist than most women are, protector of equal rights. What's the next one? Racial equality. We don't believe in races. One race, the human race. We have different heritages and ethnicities and things, but we're all one human race. And where we come from, quite literally star material, right? You all understand that. We are quite literally the stuff of stars. That's where everything came from, even us. So, position on homosexuality, no problem. What's your position on abortion? We don't have a position on abortion. Do no harm, do right. It's up to the person. We're not going to weigh in on that. What's your position on premarital sex and extramarital affairs? Do no harm, do right. It covers it. Premarital sex, look, we all know, because we've all been there, done that. We were all teenagers once, right? The hormones raging. Come on, this is real life here, right? And so we've got everybody telling us, oh, no. Better to be smart. Do no harm, do right. Be smart about it. Extramarital affairs, look, if you're not happy with the one you're with, I think there was a song about that once, wasn't there? If you're not happy with the one you're with, take care of that. Then move on. Do no harm, do right. Do you believe in an anything goes attitude? No, of course not. Do you believe in extraterrestrial beings? Of course. I mean, it would be an absolute ignorance to think that there are no other beings in this vast universe or multiverse, if you're into that. Do you believe in psychic phenomena? Yes, we do. It's part of the human condition. We're going to be talking about or hearing about that in a minute. Life after death? Yes, because compelling evidence suggests that we don't end, that consciousness moves on in a coherent fashion. There's too many things. Near-death experiences are one. Shared death experiences are an even greater testimonial to that. And if you don't know what shared death experiences are, look up the book Glimpses of Eternity by Dr. Raymond Moody, and it's an incredible book. Both of his books are. In fact, he's the one who coined near-death experience back in 1975 with his book. I forgot the name of that one. Near-death experience. Oh, there you go. Thank you, Grant. Thank you. Glimpses of Eternity, Dr. Raymond Moody. Do you believe in demons, angels? No. Do you believe in spirit communication? Yes. In fact, most religions believe in spirit communication. I mean, it's funny how Christendom, puts down divination and spirit communication, but yet it's founded on that. And prophet is another label for psychic or medium. All right, so that's the FAQs that I wanted to go through. Any questions at all so far? Could you repeat that again? The question is, do we believe in reincarnation? And the answer is, we neither believe in it or disbelieve in it. I'm waiting for more compelling evidence to arise. However, I suspect that on some level it's true. You have to accept that on faith at this point. Whether you believe in it or not doesn't matter. I mean, it's up to you, not up to me. So that's a good question, though. I'm glad you brought it up. All right, so future plans are from this point forward. We're going to continue to have these meetings every Tuesday at 7:30, and we'd love to have you come back, tell your friends if you like what you're hearing, look at the website and so forth, and get a good grasp on it. But we'd love to have you back because there's a lot we can do together. It's not just sitting here listening to me, but we're going to have different speakers as we can arrange them. We're going to have roundtable discussions on metaphysical topics. You can submit topics. We can talk about those things. We also want to do paying it forward as a group if possible and finding ways that we can do that. Remember, everything about this is to grow so that we can grow as human beings, that we can become even more empowered. We can build people up. Leave the wood pile higher than found it. That's the goal here. That's the only goal here. And this is the first of hopefully many local centers that will spring up. Now, since I've kind of given you a bit of an overview of metaphysical humanism, let me kind of cover where it came from. It was decades in the making, specifically decades of experience, adversity, and all the things we humans go through on my part. And I was Christian for 40 years of my life, and I outgrew it, honestly. It just didn't work anymore. It didn't answer the questions I needed to answer. And so I kept looking for something else. And there were bits and pieces here and there. But because we emphasize, or I have always emphasized practical life skills, there was nothing that was going to address that. That's why the Life Leadership Paragon exists. Self-acceptance, self-responsibility, respect for free will, self-completeness. You must be complete within yourself. Stand on your own 2 feet. Think about self-acceptance for a minute. How many people could use a self-esteem boost? Most of us, couldn't we? Really. And nothing in your world will be right unless you accept yourself just like you are, warts and all, as Shakespeare said. And if you don't like something, that's fine, change it. We can do that. Self-responsibility. We have to take responsibility for who we are. And we have to learn to not take responsibility for other adults, which leads into respect for free will. We have to respect people's free will. As long as they're not harming anybody or doing wrong, and it's not us to be, quote, the judge of that, but we have to respect their free will. That means not giving unsolicited advice. Think how much easier our lives would be if we just stopped trying to change and control other people to our liking, right? It's their job. It's their path. We're all on our own path here. And we all have unique lessons to learn on our own path. My lessons are different than your lessons. But at some point we can blend those and grow together. That's the point. So we can be complete within ourselves. Not complete with somebody else. Not looking outside of ourselves for the answers, because the answers are within us. We just have to look. Now that doesn't mean we can't ask for advice, can't ask, learn some new things. But ultimately it is up to us to make the decisions for our journey, for our path. And we are entitled to that path without judgment. Am I right or am I right? It's one of those two. Of course I am, except for when I'm wrong, then I'm not right. All right, so that's some of the things. The other future plans are developing the book, if you will, for metaphysical humanism. It's in the works. It's called the Inaugural. Sounds pretty exotic, doesn't it? The word means handbook. Look it up. But it sounds cool, so we're using it. Inaugural. It's a handbook, and it's going to include these points that we're talking about with metaphysical humanism, practical life skills. You can study metaphysics all you want, but if you don't include meaningful metaphysics, what's it going to do for your life? If you don't learn to be a better communicator, have better relationships, so what? Isn't that the quality of life one of the most important things? And it is. That's what metaphysics is about. Really the scientific study of existence and consciousness. And existence is practical life skills. Because if we're completely stressed out because of problems in life, we're not going to do very well. If we need to learn the lessons so that we don't continue replicating those bad relationships one after another, we have to look within and grow. And then once we do, those relationships will fall by the wayside because we become healthy. And those are just a few of the things that we'll be talking about over the coming weeks and months. As far as the format, the other thing I wanted to tell you too is that we're developing this full membership. So you don't have to be a member to come here. And if you do want to join, I know some of you have, you can join as an associate member on the website. That's where we handle the memberships. Right now there's no cost. Well, once we develop the full membership, there's going to be an annual due structure because of the information that you'll get, the Inaugural and some other things that you'll want to study. It's and it's not even finalized, but that's part of what we're working on. As far as the format of this program in coming weeks, we're going to have the welcome, reading of the 9 principles of belief each week. I'm going to do a lecture myself for the first 15 or 20 minutes on a topic. Next week it's going to be on self-acceptance, starting with the life leadership paragon, because it is fundamental to everything here. We're going to also hear from Dr. Vicky Hunter each week. She'll be talking on a selected topic. And then we're going to try to arrange a guest speaker, whether in person or on Skype, to talk about something regarding the unknown or consciousness. So like tonight it's UFOs. It might be psychic phenomena. It might be paranormal phenomena. It might be cryptozoology. It might be consciousness and the inroads that they're making in understanding it. It might be anything like that. And in the cases where we don't have a guest speaker, we're going to open it up to discussion. So we'll have some topics and we can discuss them together. We will end the program, and we won't do this tonight, but beginning next week we'll end it with a 5-minute guided meditation designed to empower and build up. That's about it, and then we'll close. And then afterward we'll have time for social fellowship and snacks and things like that. That's kind of what we've got in store. So I've given you a quick overview of everything, given you a little bit of background. There's more on the website at metaphysicalhumanism.org. At this point, I want to officially dedicate this new center to the work of metaphysical humanism, building people up. And it is so dedicated. Thank you. All right. Let's dispense with me and let's get on with the other speakers that we have. Dr. Vicky Hunter has worked as a clairvoyant for 40 years and is an accomplished spiritual counselor and educator. She's a former TV host and the author of several books and programs, including her flagship work, Principles for Natural Laws and Learning. She serves on the church's board of directors, as I've mentioned. She's the vice president of operations. Since 2011, she has co-hosted our weekly radio service program, Metaphysical Universe, which we have discontinued in lieu of the new video broadcast, but she's done that since 2011. She holds a PhD in Metaphysical Humanistic Science from our school, and she specializes in spiritual counseling. She resides in the Great White North, British Columbia, Canada, where she's deep in some snow there. So let's give our attention to Dr. Vicky Hunter.
And all these wonderful guests. So I have a little feedback coming here. Just going to try to turn me down. So one of the things that I'd like to talk about I'm sorry guys, I have a lot of feedback. I'm going zen for a minute.
Try turning your speakers down.
I did. They're all down. Everything's down. Okay, it's just a little delay. I'm just going to do my best. What got me started investigating and researching was to try to figure out how do I do what I do, and how I know what I'm going to do here. I'm going to take off the headset. That will do it, I think. So, as I was saying, how did I do what I do? How could I learn to understand myself better? I always knew things ahead of time. I would have dreams, clairvoyant dreams, premonitions, and it's kind of when you're alone in a religious family and you're not quite right, and you're being told the devil is possessing you, it's kind of scary. So it was kind of trying to break out on my own and ask a lot of questions. As I got a little bit older and I started doing readings, actual readings for the people, somebody gave me a tarot deck. That just opened up my world forever. And I started meeting people. I started exploring and asking questions. Even in 1977, I got my certification in hypnosis. I wanted to understand how the mind worked. As much as I could do readings for people, get glimmers into the future, have that sense about who they are and what's going to happen, I wanted to know how this worked. And of course, it took me many, many years. But even back then, one of the things I would tell some of my teachers is what we are really is metaphysicians. And the answer was yes, but nobody even knew the word metaphysics. I mean, how do you explain what is metaphysics? Let alone just want to understand humanity. So, of course, I took the regular routes of many years exploring to read about religion, what are all the common threads among religion, what is it that people are looking for. But then if you really read all the gurus, they always say the answer is within yourself. Okay, but if I have to look over there and then look inside, it can get really confusing. But I just kept studying. I kept learning. Yeah? Up here? Can you hear me? Oh. See, if I have the headset on, I might be able to actually unplug this whole thing. The headset gives me feedback, so we'll just go this way. Thanks. So even exploring metaphysics and along my many years of doing readings for people and learning and studying, and I was a professional writer for a lot of years, a business consultant, raised 3 kids. And to fast forward, at age 55, I went through a life-altering event. And this little voice in my head, because I do tend to have little voices in my head, little voice in my head told me to go to the internet and Google metaphysical ministry. And kidding me, right? Because after a few years, I'm not really keen on the religion thing. So, but anyway, it led me exactly where I needed to go. So that was trusting intuition, trusting that, whatever, super consciousness, if you will, which led me right here. At that time, it was called the Metaphysical Church of Humanistic Science and International, uh, the school, IMHS, can't think right now. And it just became an evolution. I got my ordination, I graduated, and it was home. Because finally, somebody was thinking the way I did. Somebody was wanting to explore and study and ask questions. Because that's the one thing I've always dared to do, is ask the questions. Sometimes they're not real popular, but I ask the questions anyway. What makes us think? What makes us do what we do? What is energy? Now, because I do happen to have this connection with other worlds, and I do believe in reincarnation from a linear perspective, I had a lot of friends in my head. It's not always easy to find a home with a group of people who are willing to, even if they disagree and they've never had the experience, who are willing to be open and listen and share. And, well, the rest, as they say, became history, because Dr. Kelly and I became friends, also with Tracy Kelly, his wife. And I'm just really excited to be here. I'm excited at this next step. And it just makes sense in my life, because it's a place where you be who you are. It's extraordinary. And that's fun for me. And by the way, for just to satisfy, because, the reincarnation question popped into my head earlier. If we can explore quantum physics and we see that all things are happening simultaneously at once, then who's to say that we don't exist in those alternate realities? But we think linear. We have a yesterday, today, and tomorrow. So our brain and our reality files it differently. So there's all these other plausible explanations. I totally believe. I have memory from many lifetimes that has surfaced throughout my entire life. I've had dreams and memories when I was 3, 4 years old of other times and places. Raising 3 kids, they all had past other kinds of memories. So that's my explanation. But again, from quantum physics, we could see it that it's happening simultaneous in some other dimension of space-time. Do we know the answers? No, but that's the beautiful thing about asking questions and continuing to explore. So I'm really glad to be here. I'm glad to meet everybody here. And I hope that gives you a little bit of introduction to myself and to a little bit of what I do. And if anybody has any questions, that's great. But I have to put my headset back. Okay, I'm back. This is all a big experiment.
Okay, so my question is, do you feel that you were apparently born with that special connection so that you hear those voices, or and you have that connection to do readings, etc.? Can we all get that, or is that something some of us are born with that ability and others?
I believe everybody has it. I do. I think people have varying degrees of abilities. To me, there's 2 types of reading energy. One is being able to, what I call autosensory perception, and it's that front brain thing where we can feel and read energy between us. Do you understand? Like there's always this dynamic of energy. The other is that we all come from spirit. We all have the capacity to be connected in extraordinary ways, but everybody has their own predominant kind of disposition. I died when I was 5. I left my body. I think that has something to do with it. It doesn't explain memories that I have earlier than that, though. But I think that I've been told it's called where the veil thins between the worlds. So having drowned and left my body and having full recollection of that experience and then coming back, actually drowning was a piece of cake. It was coming back that was hard, just for the record. No offense, because I remember it so clearly. But I think everyone has the capacity to open up those sensories of themselves. Absolutely.
Anybody else have a question that you'd like to ask? Anybody else have an
That was a
answer
good
you'd like to
question,
All right, Dr. Vicky, thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, good. So, good points. The summation of that is that we recognize psychic phenomena. Can we develop it? Yes, you can develop it. It's a muscle. Are some people better at it than others? Sure. Just like some people are better at basketball than other people, or better at the piano, or anything like that. It's a gift. We all have our gifts. Yes.
In what ways can you develop it?
Question is, in what ways can you develop it? You know, I don't know if there's an easy answer or a simple answer. You can develop by looking, we have a course on this, and I wrote it. I'm trying to figure out how to condense it into a quick answer. And I'm going to talk with you later because there's more to it than I have got time to go into. But it's not that hard. You just have to visualize it. That's one thing we can do is visualize turning it on. That can work for a lot of different things too. Turn it on. But I'll talk to you about it afterward. Okay. All right. One other quick thing I'm going to mention before we move on to our final part is that I didn't mention is that we operate a metaphysics school online, and we've had that for almost 5 years now, where we give bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees in metaphysics in a variety of specializations, whether it's metaphysical science, spiritual counseling, life coaching, hypnosis, paranormal research, parapsychology, things like that. So that's what she was referring to as IMHS, the Institute of Metaphysical Humanistic Science. All right. So just brought you up to speed on that. Excuse me. Trying to get rid of this cold. All right, next. My water. I left it back there. Next, Grant Rubin Dunst. Let me read you his bio. He's a licensed mental health counselor with the state of Florida. He is a graduate of the University of South Florida and holds an undergraduate degree in social work, as well as a master's degree in rehabilitation and mental health counseling. Grant is also a certified leading paranormal investigator and the assistant director of Paranexus Anomalous Research Association. Grant has spent many years as a student and investigator of anomalous phenomena of all kinds, and he's like a walking encyclopedia at times. And he's going to present the topic of UFOs past, present, and future. So let's give our attention to Grant Rubin Dunst.
Thank you very much, everybody. All right, let me see if I can get the mechanics down here, all right? Okay.
Is your mic on?
How about it? Can you hear me? Well, first of all, it's nice to see everybody here. And, you know, I'm reminded of the movie Prometheus, where the android says, big things have little beginnings. And I think here, it's just wonderful to see everybody's face and that you're here and we're all on the same page. And, you know, I think this is going to be a wonderful beginning. So I hope that you'll enjoy this presentation. And as Doug alluded to a few minutes ago, I also do a lot of research into near death. And at some point down the line, if folks would be interested, I'd be more than happy to come down and do a presentation. So, without further ado, UFOs, past, present, and future. Basically what I'm going to do is just give you a little overview. Everybody's probably been exposed. Some of this information is not necessarily new, but we're going to give you just a little overview. So the first slide there you see, there's your classic UFO, like we're all kind of used to seeing. Okay? Next slide, please. All right, these two pictures here represent points in the past. How many people here are familiar with the term Göbekli Tepe? Okay? This pictorial reference is an artist's conception of this temple. All right? Prior to this temple being discovered, the oldest thing that we knew archaeologically was about 5,000 years, I think about the pyramids, okay? 5,000 BCE, okay? Well, guess what? Göbekli Tepe is 12,000 years old. It's in Turkey. Thank you. It's 12,000 years old. And what scientists now think is, it doesn't have necessarily anything to do with extraterrestrials, but has a lot to do with when we first became hunter-gatherers, okay? So that was a point of significance. Also, many people have speculated that the pyramids have had something extraterrestrial. Well, I don't know. However, I just wanted to point out here that this goes way back. So if we could have the next slide, please. Okay, this slide here is an actual representation from a cave painting that was taken in Italy. All right. Now, the reason why I put this slide up there is all pictographs are subject to interpretation, but this one I found particularly interesting because this representation seems to show people that are in almost biohazard suits. Okay. Now, we can also attribute this to some type of ceremony. Okay. But nonetheless, what I wanted to show you here or illustrate is the fact that this is not a new phenomenon. Okay? All right, if we could have the next slide, please. This is also a pictograph. Okay? Pictographs were done on rocks. Okay? So, this pictograph, I don't know exactly how old it is. It's probably some of you may have seen it before. But I think it's representative of the fact that these folks, as I'll later point out, our ancestors wanted to record these. Okay, next slide, please. This is a Babylonian sculpture, and I think the most interesting thing here is these folks up here. Okay, now all of these all these artworks and all of the sculptures that were done are always open to interpretation. But if I could have the next slide, please. One of the most interesting things about ancient Mesopotamia is that they said that one of the people that came to them and brought them information and knowledge about agriculture and mathematics was, and we can once again attribute this to mythology, but it's very interesting here, was this person named Onas, who came from the ocean to the Babylonians. He's described in ancient mythology as being more of a fish than a man. And some of the ancient Mesopotamians actually said he was an amphibian. Okay, well, we don't know that. But nonetheless, it points out the fact that possibly, and I'm not a big Ancient Aliens fan, okay, but nonetheless, it shows that there might have been some intervention at some time. And we're talking about a long time ago. Okay? Next slide, please. This slide here is a pictorial representation from our own Native Americans. Okay? What I find most interesting in this is this looks like a robot, okay? An android of some kind. Next slide. This picture is a little bit farther up the line. This is from Nuremberg, Germany in 1561. This is a well-recorded event where it almost seemed, some of you might be familiar with Indian history, talked about the Vimanas. Well, this was actually something that people, many people witnessed this, and it went on for more than, I think, 2 or 3 days. No explanation. If you look at it, one of the things I think is kind of interesting is this feature right here, because any of you who are familiar with some of the modern mythology or the modern observations, that kind of represents one of the black triangles that some people are seeing. Okay? Next slide, please. Okay, this is just some observations. We know that whoever our ancestors saw something, and they represented animal life, they represented the things around them as best they could, and so some of these were depicted in cave art, okay? And some of the cave art is absolutely magnificent. It's beautiful. It stands the test of time, which is one thing about human beings. It shows that we had those skills, those innate, wonderful skills that we have, okay? Babylonian Egyptian references. They're a part of the art and the literature. There are some, I think, on Ancient Aliens, they've showed you a Egyptian pictorial of what looks to be a helicopter. And it's like 5,000 years old. So once again, these are always open to interpretations, but there's a strong, similarity. And once again, in the Old Testament, we have Ezekiel's close encounter, all right, which is recorded right in the Old Testament. We also have universal depictions globally and cross-culturally, okay, from China, from Japan, and from our American Indians. Also, medieval sightings in Europe on more than one occasion. They weren't of the same significance as in Nuremberg, but UFOs have been reported. They are also depicted in medieval art. Okay? All right, next slide, please. First historical documentation. Well, we'll go to the Old Testament. All right? Very well recorded, the Old Testament. The Jewish folks were good historians. We have Ezekiel. And then followed by that, 329 BC, we have Alexander, who witnessed flying shields, and his armed forces witnessed flying shields. Followed by Livy, who depicted in 214 in one of the battles, supposedly a UFO was observing them or something they couldn't describe. Or they described it, but they weren't sure what it was. In 1803 in Japan, a very interesting UFO incident occurred where a person of high strangeness was observed by the Japanese people. Spoke in a strange language, dressed strangely, came on a strange, they described it as a boat. But for all practical purposes, it almost seemed, you could almost say that possibly this was somebody that wasn't from here, okay? And of course, there's many, in 1896, I don't know if everybody's familiar, but there was a big rampant, in the United States, before we actually had flying machines, people observed flying machines. You've all heard about the one that crashed in Texas. That was from that time period. Next slide, please. Okay. Early observations were related to natural causes, and these incidents are merely misinterpreted. That's one way we can write it off. That primitive man interpreted these things as best he could. The observed phenomena was adapted and incorporated into their religion and cultural beliefs, like the Dogon tribe, who supposedly had a connection with UFOs from Sirius. The early Paleo-Indians and Neolithic Europeans would recognize aerial lights as something unusual. They were well aware of the constellations. They needed them for hunting. Even though they were not involved in agriculture, they were, they needed to know the changes of the season, and they could also see that by observing the stars. So they definitely knew what was out of line. So obviously, if there's no lights in the sky other than the stars, if something bright and pulsating comes by, that's going to capture their attention. And I think that these pictographs are their collective efforts to preserve what they saw for us, for posterity. Next slide, Michael, please. Okay, UFOs present. All right. Now, I specifically picked this picture, okay, because this one here, I think, could be a helicopter. All right? Then it's not a UFO. Okay? This one, on the other hand, here is a little bit more mysterious. All right? But this one could easily be misinterpreted. All right? Next slide, Michael, please. Here we have, I don't know if you can see it very clearly, we have a black triangle. All right? These, some people think that these are possibly government vehicles. They're called TR-3s. And they believe that they may be the first prototypes of anti-gravity craft. They're silent. They make no noise. They have been reported and recorded by the Belgian Air Force. Okay? There was a big incident in the 1980s. Next slide, please. And of course, if you haven't heard, we're getting all kinds of reports of the astronauts up in the ISS seeing things. All right? This is just to give you an example. There's a lot on there. Personally, some of it I think is very intriguing. There's other stuff that I think with so much space debris up there, it's hard telling. Okay? However, when objects make right-hand turns at high speeds, that kind of really intrigues me that much more. Next slide, Michael, please. Okay, present observations. Well, let's first of all, before we define them as absolutely extraterrestrial, we have to rule out that they're not any of our vehicles. All right? They're not any of our high-altitude surveillance or spycraft. Any photographs that we see nowadays, especially with computer-generated stuff, has to stand the rigid scrutiny to make sure it's authentic. To date, one of the things that I talked about with Doug, and we've kind of chuckled about in the past, is if you watch any Ancient Aliens or any of the UFO files or anything on TV, you'll see a flashback for a guy in the 1950s, and he's wearing an Indian headdress. And he's talking this wild, crazy stuff, and it's like 1950s, but he says, I do believe that any day now we're going to have disclosure. Okay? And if you look around, you'll see people that will come to the forefront in this field and will tell you any day we're going to have disclosure. Well, 60 years later, we're still waiting. I'm not sure we're ever going to have disclosure. Okay? And that's things that we could talk about at a later date. Here's the real trick in ufology, and what has so many people tangled in knots, is this one here, separating the factual roots from disinformation. Okay? We're bombarded with disinformation every day through our media. Okay? So it's really tough for people who are interested in this phenomena to kind of separate the wheat from the chaff. Next slide, Michael, please. Okay, I believe that we're on the edge of a paradigm shift. Many people also think the same. Earth orbits a common yellow star. Okay? Earth-type stars, I think they're M5 classification, are quite common in the universe. We have to understand that the phenomena also may not be extraterrestrial in nature. And that's something that we need to, that we can explore further down the line if we decide to do a series on this. There are many changes that are coming down. And we are getting to the point where we are going to redefine cosmology and physics. Dr. Hunter alluded to quantum physics. And quantum physics changes everything. Okay? We've never been able to reconcile the real big out there with the real small. They don't work. Okay? So there's many, many mysteries that we have yet to really uncover. Now, I don't know if you've known, but recently they've discovered an escape of methane on Mars. All right. Now, I'm gonna level with you. I think there's life on Mars. I think that they know there's life on Mars. But the discovery will change everything. We are on the verge of an incredible shift in how we view ourselves and how we view the universe around us. Next slide, Michael, please. The future. This is a craft concept based on the Alcubierre drive, which actually bends space or folds space. This is a NASA prototype, believe it or not. Okay? One of the first spaceships. A spaceship like this could get to, if it's practical, it's probably quite a ways away, but if it became operational, it would probably be able to go to Alpha Centauri, which is 4.3 light years away in about 2 weeks. Next slide, please. Okay, observations of the Kepler telescope. How am I doing on time? Okay, I'm almost done. What's important here is that the Kepler telescope has already identified many, many star systems that are within close proximity. There are a total of 54 Earth red dwarfs and brown dwarf stars within 16 light years of us. Okay? Alpha Centauri is 4.3 light years away, and that's probably one of the first destinations. But what I think is important to understand is, just with the sheer size, We have to take this into consideration. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Here we go. This is also a replication or a presentation of the Accuberry Drive, okay? Opening a porthole or a wormhole, all right? And last but not least, maybe we'll take our place, all right? Now, I appreciate your time, and it's great to see everybody here. And once again, remember that this is the beginning of something big and something good, okay? And thank you all for coming, and thank you for all your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Grant. Excellent
my
job.
pleasure.
I was paying attention and listening and getting engrossed and wasn't watching the clock. Sorry. All right, so we're pretty much going to wrap this up. Wanted to just mention a couple of things again right afterward. We're going to have some snacks, coffee, soft drinks, whatever you'd like. We hope you stay around for a little bit and visit and get to know one another. We'd like to invite you back next week if you'd like to come. 7:30, same thing, and we'll have some more topics and we'll get into exploring them a little bit deeper, and we'll be a little more familiar with each other. So that way you know that I don't have two heads and I know you don't have two heads, and so we can feel a little more comfortable. In a couple of weeks, we have a new moon in a couple of weeks on right around a Tuesday night. So as part of our social hour, maybe we can do a sky watch or something like that. Anybody ever done a sky watch? Well, if you haven't, you look at the sky. So you probably all done a sky watch. And we do have some folding chairs we can set out there too. One of the things that Grant had mentioned and suggested is to get maybe one of the astronomy clubs at the high school to come over and set up telescopes sometime. I think that would be fascinating. So that's the kind of stuff we would like to schedule, and for our own enrichment. But we also want to talk about doing the pay it forward things, and we'll have a little section on the subsequent weeks. If you've done something you'd like to relate, we'd love to hear about it because it's upbuilding. So everything we talked about tonight: metaphysical humanism, empowering the human spirit, lifting people up, doing the right thing, doing no harm, do right. And that's pretty much the long and the short of it. All right. I think we've covered everything. I would like to thank Dr. Vicky Hunter for her participation, Grant Rubin does for his. I would like to thank you for coming. I appreciate it sincerely. It's a big night for me, even though it may not seem like it, but it is. And I appreciate the worldwide audience too, those watching the video broadcast. Appreciate you tuning in as well. So until next week, listen, think, learn, grow, and live. Thank you.